The story begins with a woman named Tess Marshall arriving at a house she rented through Airbnb as heavy rain pours down outside. But when she checks the lockbox at the entrance, she realizes the key isn't there like the booking instructions said. Confused, Tess attempts to contact the person who made the reservation for her, but it goes straight to voicemail, so she leaves a message asking them to call her back. Things get even stranger when she notices the lights inside the house are already on. She rings the doorbell, and to her surprise, a man answers from inside. The man introduces himself as Keith, and it quickly becomes clear that he's also renting the same place, meaning the booking agent must have mistakenly scheduled two people at once. Since neither of them can reach the person responsible, and the rain outside is relentless, Keith feels bad and invites Tess in. To prove he's telling the truth, Keith shows her his reservation confirmation on the app. Even so, Tess still feels uneasy about sharing a house with a stranger, so she starts looking for nearby hotels, only to discover that everything is fully booked for the night. Overhearing her conversation, Keith explains that there's a major medical convention happening in the city, making it nearly impossible to find an available room. With no other option, Keith suggests she stay the night and offers her the bedroom. After bringing her suitcase inside, Tess goes into the room where she spots his wallet. For her own safety, she secretly takes a picture of his ID before returning it to him, then heads off to take a shower. When she comes back out, she sees Keith waiting with a sealed bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Still cautious, Tess declines the drink but agrees to sit and talk with him. As they chat, she mentions she's in town for a job interview with a filmmaker named Catherine James. Keith responds by saying he's actually watched Catherine James' latest movie and adds that her upcoming project is about a Detroit music group, something he's personally connected to as one of its founders. Finding some common ground, Tess begins to relax, and their conversation becomes more lively and engaging. At one point, Keith even demonstrates a goofy trick for flipping fresh bed sheets, which makes her laugh. Together, they set up the bed with clean sheets for her, and as Keith says goodnight, it's obvious he's starting to develop feelings for her. Later that night, Tess is suddenly awakened by the sound of her door creaking open. She sees it slowly swinging, which unsettles her. At the same time, she hears Keith mumbling, "Help me," in his sleep, breathing heavily, which makes the situation even more disturbing. She cautiously approaches him, unaware that another door in the background is quietly opening. She shakes Keith awake, startling him. Tess tells him she thought he opened her door, but he looks confused and denies it. After apologizing for the misunderstanding, she goes back to her room and makes sure to lock the door before trying to sleep again. The next morning, Keith is nowhere to be found, but he's left behind a note saying he stepped out and that he enjoyed their time together the night before. When Tess finally leaves the house for her interview, she notices for the first time that every other house in the neighborhood looks abandoned and deteriorated, except the one she stayed in. Despite this obvious warning sign, she brushes it off because she's running late and continues to her interview. After it ends, Catherine James asks where she's staying in Detroit, and when Tess says Brightmoor, Catherine immediately looks concerned. She warns Tess that the area is dangerous and advises her not to stay there, but Tess reassures her that everything is fine. When Tess returns to the house, a homeless man can be seen rushing in the background. He starts shouting at her, telling her to leave the house immediately. Terrified, Tess quickly grabs the keys and locks herself inside just in time before he reaches her. She tries calling 911 while keeping an eye on him, but unfortunately, they're unable to send help right away. With no immediate assistance, she packs her belongings and decides to manage inside the house for now. Later on, she realizes there's no toilet paper left upstairs, so she heads down into the basement to get some. As she makes her way back upstairs, the door behind her slowly moves shut by itself and traps her inside. Then it hits her that her phone is still in the bedroom. On top of that, the house key is in her pocket, meaning Keith won't be able to get back in. Spotting a window nearby, she starts searching for something she can use to break it. Instead, she notices a rope sticking out from the wall and decides to pull on it. This reveals a hidden door in the basement, and beyond it lies a pitch-black space that immediately feels unsettling. She waits around in the basement for a while, but eventually gets bored and grabs a mirror, trying to reflect light into the darkness. The reflection shows a long, narrow hallway stretching ahead. With no better option, she gathers the courage to explore it. As she walks down the hallway, she finds another door. When she opens it, she steps into a cramped room containing a stained bed with dried blood, a bucket, and an old camera. The disturbing scene terrifies her, and she quickly runs back into the basement. Thankfully, Keith returns at that moment. She calls out to him through a small window and hands him the key so he can unlock the door and help her. Once he lets her out, she panics, grabs her belongings, and starts rambling about the horrifying room she just saw with the bed, the camera, and the bucket. Keith, however, doesn't seem alarmed by her story and assumes there's a normal explanation for those items in a basement. Curious, he decides to go down and check it himself, telling her to stay upstairs in case the door shuts again. Before long, Tess grows restless. She decides to go after him, but as she does, the basement door begins closing once more. This time, she wedges a chair in place to keep it open before heading down. She calls out to Keith again, but there's no response. She walks back through the dark hallway until she reaches the strange room, but he isn't there. When she turns back into the corridor, she realizes there's another hidden door she didn't notice before, leading to a staircase going further down. Calling his name again, she finally hears him shouting for help. With no other choice, she heads down the stairs. Following his voice through the dark maze, she comes across several rusty cages, each with dog bowls inside. As she goes deeper, she eventually finds Keith, who is clearly terrified and says something bit him. He's paranoid and on edge, and the two begin arguing about which direction leads to an exit. Before they can escape, a terrifying naked humanoid creature suddenly appears and violently smashes Keith's head against the wall, killing him instantly. The creature then turns its attention to Tess, screaming at her, and what follows is left unknown. The story then shifts to AJ Gilbride, a well-known Hollywood actor who receives an unexpected phone call. His colleagues inform him that he's been removed from his latest project due to accusations of sexual misconduct involving a co-star. With his career now at risk, he flies to Detroit to sell off one of his properties so he can afford legal representation. The property he owns turns out to be the very same house in Brightmoor. When AJ arrives, he notices Tessa's car still parked outside, and inside the house, both her belongings and Keith's things are scattered around. This immediately frustrates him, and he assumes someone has been illegally staying there. He contacts his property manager, but she insists that there haven't been any Airbnb bookings for the house in the past 2 weeks. Choosing to ignore this detail for now, AJ goes out to meet a friend, where it becomes clear that he did assault his co-star, even though he refuses to acknowledge it as such. The next morning, he starts going through the items left behind, try to figure out who the intruders are. He finds Tessa's laptop and sees her username, then later comes across her car keys sitting on the dining table. This leaves him with one final place to search: the basement. He prepares himself by putting on proper clothes and grabbing a small knife along with a flashlight. As soon as he enters the basement, he hears a loud noise coming from behind one of the walls. He also spots the rope sticking out and pulls it, revealing the hidden door. But instead of being disturbed by what he finds, AJ doesn't see anything unusual about the room with the bed and camera. In fact, he views it as a bonus, extra space that could raise the property's value. He then pulls out a measuring tape and begins checking the dimensions of both the dark hallway and the suspicious room. He becomes even more excited when he finds another hidden door that leads deeper underground and continues measuring as he moves further down. AJ doesn't react with fear when he sees the cages. Instead, he pushes forward until he notices a faint light glowing deeper inside the tunnel. As he approaches it, he comes across a disgusting room with a small television playing an old instructional video about caring for a baby. Suddenly, something pulls on his measuring tape, and he lets go of it. Startled by a frightening noise, he panics and runs further into the tunnel. At that moment, the creature suddenly appears right in front of him. Terrified, AJ keeps running until he drops into a pit, where he discovers Tess is already trapped inside. The story then cuts to the 1980s, showing the original owner of the house, a man named Frank, leaving his home. As he gets into his car, the neighborhood looks normal, filled with residents. He drives to a grocery store and tells a worker that he needs baby supplies because he's expecting a newborn. However, when he returns to his car, something feels off about him. He begins following a woman's car and secretly watches her as she arrives home. Later, he disguises himself as a city electrician, claiming he needs to inspect possible power issues. Once inside the woman's house, he unlocks her bathroom window before quietly leaving and heading back home. When he arrives, a neighbor greets him and mentions that many people are selling their homes due to fears of an upcoming economic downturn, but Frank confidently says he has no intention of leaving. As soon as he enters his house, and opens the basement door. The sound of a woman screaming in pain echoes from below. The scene then shifts back to the present, where Tess warns AJ to stay quiet so they don't provoke the creature. Right on cue, it appears and reaches through the bars, offering them a baby bottle to drink. Tess nervously drinks the spoiled milk and urges AJ to do the same, explaining that the creature only wants them to act like her children, but he refuses. Sensing something is wrong, the creature climbs down into the pit with them and gently cradles Tess. It then approaches AJ and begins speaking to him in a disturbing, childlike tone. Moments later, it grabs AJ by his legs and drags him away, leaving Tess behind in the hole. The creature, known as the Mother, takes AJ to the room with the TV and tries to force him to nurse. Meanwhile, Tess takes advantage of the situation to climb out of the pit and escape. Unfortunately, she accidentally makes noise by stepping on the measuring tape, alerting the creature, which immediately starts chasing her. To make matters worse, the basement door is locked, forcing her to squeeze through a small window. A homeless man helps her out just in time before the Mother can reach her. It turns out that the homeless people in the area already know about the creature living in the house, and this man is the same one who warned her earlier. He explains that the creature comes out at night and will be searching for her, so she needs to leave immediately. He also reveals that the creature is not the only thing living beneath that house. Meanwhile, AJ wanders through the tunnels and finds a bell attached to a power line, which he decides to follow. This leads him to a room where an elderly man is lying, revealed to be Frank himself. Back above ground, Tess makes her way to a nearby gas station and uses the clerk's phone to call the police. When officers arrive, they judge her harshly and assume she's a drug user, but she manages to convince them to come back to the house to help AJ. However, once they get there, the police doubt her story and dismiss her as just another unstable homeless person before driving away. At the same time, Frank signals AJ to open his bedside drawer, which AJ does. Inside, AJ finds several videotapes labeled with different women's names, so he plays one. The recording reveals a woman being assaulted, which enrages him, and he starts shouting at Frank. In response, Frank pulls out a gun from the drawer and suddenly shoots himself. Meanwhile, upstairs, Tess breaks a window to re-enter the house and grab her car keys. But as she starts the car and prepares to leave, the Mother appears outside, causing Tess to drive straight at her and slam her into a wall until she seems unconscious. After that, Tess heads back down to rescue AJ, while AJ arms himself with Frank's gun and begins making his way through the tunnels again. Tragically, AJ accidentally shoots Tess in the side. He helps her up, and together they rush out of the house. To their shock, the creature is no longer pinned by the car. Since Tess's car is no longer usable and AJ's keys are lost somewhere in the tunnels, she leads them to the homeless man's shelter for safety. There, the man explains that Frank, the original owner, was a serial predator who kidnapped women and kept them captive, assaulting them until they had children. He then forced those children to reproduce with each other, and after generations of inbreeding, the mother became the final result, having lived in the house for over 4 decades. The man assures them they're safe because the creature never ventures this far from the house. But almost immediately, the mother appears and brutally tears the homeless man apart. Panicked, AJ and Tess run to a nearby water tower, though Tess struggles to keep up because of her injury. Once they reach the top, AJ suddenly remembers he has a gun, but he clumsily drops it. With no escape left, he reveals his true nature by pushing Tess off the tower, knowing the creature will try to save her child. Just as expected, the mother rushes to catch her. Believing the creature is dead, AJ climbs down to check on Tess. It's clear that the mother broke her fall, and Tess is still alive. He lies, claiming he doesn't remember what happened, and says Tess simply slipped. But then, to his shock, the creature rises again and grabs him. She violently gouges out his eyes with her thumbs before crushing his skull. Afterward, the mother approaches Tess and gently tries to lift her, but Tess is badly injured. The creature softly speaks to her and attempts to carry her back into the tunnels, while Tess secretly takes AJ's gun. She points the weapon at the mother, showing a brief moment of hesitation on her face before firing. Tess then manages to stand up and walks away to seek medical help. And that is where the movie concludes.